you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Monday, December 16th. The Montreal Canadiens had practice earlier today, coming off of their 4-2 loss in Winnipeg on Saturday night. The Canadiens prepared to host the Buffalo Sabres tomorrow night, after which they'll go on the road to Detroit on Friday. They'll be back versus Detroit on Saturday, and then head to Columbus for a game on Monday night. And then the Canadiens are going to be off during the Christmas holidays until they'll travel to Florida and play the Florida Panthers on Saturday the 28th in the afternoon at 1 p.m. The following day, they're going to be in Tampa for a 5 p.m. game. And a couple of nights after that, they're going to be in Vegas for an afternoon game at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I hope you're all doing well. Thanks for watching on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live. We're going to get to all of your questions today. We're going to try and keep an eye on the chat as much as possible, but I'm obviously going to have my eyes as well on Eric Engels of Sportsnet and Sportsnet.ca. Before we bring Eric in, because Eric isn't there yet, Shane, if you can get a hold of Eric and get him on. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. Also brought to you in part by Le Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for chilly winter days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light and ultra refreshing. And Playground. Celebrate 14 incredible years of poker excellence at Playground with their anniversary poker series on now till December 16th. The series boasts $850,000 in guaranteed prizes, including a $400,000 guaranteed main event. Don't miss your chance to be part of the action. Visit playground.ca for all the details. All right, okay. Not so sure what happened with Eric. We are calling him right now, and we'll get him on. But that's okay. You know what? It gives me an opportunity actually to tackle so many of your questions right away. This way we don't have to wait. So I'm going to have an eye on the chat. Eric Préfontaine on YouTube says, Je parle même pas anglais, puis je viens te voir quand même ce soir, pas le choix. Says, I don't even speak English, but I'm here to see you anyways tonight. Not much of a choice. Well, I mean, you always have a choice, but I'm glad you're choosing me. So thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, mon ami. Hello, Tony and Sick Podcast. Regards from the Canary Islands. It is 3 a.m. here, so I'm only on for 10 minutes. Go Habs, go. Oh, wow. I guess he goes to bed at 3:10 a.m. every night or every morning. Tony, Dach for Cozens, would you do it? It's an interesting question because his name has been thrown out there. And I think it's Craig Button of TSN who brought it up. And Craig's going to be my guest on Wednesday. By the way, tomorrow night with the Canadiens hosting the Buffalo Sabres, I will be joined by Pierre Maguire with your Maguire Report, of course, brought to you by Restaurant Vago. And Max Lapierre is a regular on Tuesday night's postgame as well. So Max Lapierre and Pierre Maguire tomorrow night, which has the makings of an unbelievable Habs postgame show. It should be an unbelievable Habs postgame show. So I got a question for you. Okay, so Kirby Dach for Cozens. So Dylan Cozens. Here's my question for you. Why would Buffalo do it? why would Buffalo do it? Dylan Cozens has shown since his arrival in the National Hockey League that thus far he's a better player than Kirby Dach. So why would Buffalo do it? Because Dylan Cozens is signed just over $7 million until 2030, and Kirby Dach's deal is up in a year or whatever it is. But he's a better player. He's got 13 points in 31 games. He's off to a slow start. There's no doubt about it. Those are not good numbers. Last year's 47 points in 79 games were better numbers. The year before, 68 points in 81 games were obviously even better numbers. He had a 31-goal season. Dylan Cozens is still young. He's 23 years old. He'll be 24 on the 9th of February. He's just as tall as Kirby Dach. He's a little thinner, probably by about, 15 to 20 pounds. He's also a right-handed centerman. But it would be an interesting trade because one is a number 3 overall in Kirby Dach. Cozens is a number 7 overall for Buffalo. But you know what? I don't know. I've heard about this, and I don't know if this trade would be on the table. I mean, it's rare that two teams in the same division make a trade, but it wouldn't be the first time. It's happened before. And I think Dylan Cozens is a better hockey player than Kirby Dach. Maybe when Kirby Dach is fully recovered, maybe we're going to, be saying something different. But right now, I'm going to go with that. And you know what? There's a lot of guys that when they leave Buffalo, they play better hockey. And I understand, by the way, what the concern is. Dylan Cozens is in year 2 of 7. So year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7. It's 5 more years at $7.1 million. But we know that the Montreal Canadiens like players who are signed long-term. And we know that the Montreal Canadiens like players who are drafted in the first round. If Buffalo would want to do it, I'm sure the Canadiens would be more than happy to pull it off. That's one trade rumor that's out there right now. The other trade rumor is, there's so many. Another trade rumor is Nick Ehlers from the Winnipeg Jets. Nick Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets is going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. And is he eyeing Montreal? He's in year 7 of a 7-year deal that pays him $6 million a year. He's 28 years old. We know that the Canadiens could use another winger on the top 2 lines. We know that for sure. Is Ehlers the ideal guy? I think he's an upgrade on what they have. If what they have would be an Alex Newhook in the top 6. Because I don't think Newhook's a top 6. We have our guy, Eric Engels. We bring him in from Sportsnet, sportsnet.ca. How are you?
Holy shit, Tony. I was missing for a couple of minutes and you're going off the rails.
I'm a little...
Where are these rumors coming from?
Well, supposedly Frank Saravalli of Daily Faceoff regarding Nick Ehlers.
Oh, yeah?
And supposedly... Yeah. And he's an unrestricted free agent.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if it's free agency or if a deal before free agency.
I would say.
And supposedly Craig Button regarding Dylan Cozens. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm being, that's the information I'm getting. And we'll talk with Craig in a couple of days. But I'm surprised actually that you're a little late for the podcast. I know that you're so excited about the countdown music. You usually log on about half an hour before.
I couldn't get my my webcam working properly. Yeah, neither of those things are going to happen here.
No.
I would be very, very surprised.
You told me the same thing about. Yeah,
I know. I knew that was going to come out. I knew that was the first thing that was going to come out of your mouth as soon as I said that.
Well, I mean,
but yeah, no.
Don't worry about it. I've been wrong probably more often than I've been right. So
Nick Ehlers becomes a top 6 forward here with Ivan Demidov coming.
So
the top 6 that already features Cole Caufield.
Okay, so let's discuss it. So Cole Caufield's a top 6. There's no doubt about it. Nick Suzuki's a top 6. There's no doubt about it. Ivan Demidov slated to be a top 6. I think there's no doubt about it. And I think Patrick Laine is a top 6. There's no doubt about it. if Juraj Slafkovsky and Kirby Dach continue to play the way they've been playing since the beginning of the season, they're not top sixes. But I am not throwing in the towel on Slavkovsky. I believe that he will be a top six with regularity starting next season for sure, and he's still a top six this year. Are you saying that Ehlers can't be that sixth guy, or are you saying that sixth guy has to be another centerman, or are you saying that the Canadiens have players in the mold of Ehlers? Because, by the way, I don't disagree with you. I think he's obviously a talented player. He can play on the Canadiens, but some will probably say, he could be in top six in the Canadiens, and you can give Demidov time.
Why did the Canadiens not trade for Trevor Zegras?
Because they believe. No, I think
it has anything to do with the type of player that he is.
I think it's because of the type of player that he is,
and based on what they already have, right? Like the minute that you saw Ivan Demidov drafted by the Canadiens,
yeah,
I assume you scratched Trevor Zegras' name.
I did.
Off.
I actually didn't think they were going to get Zegras to begin with, so
but let's eliminate the Nick Ehlers idea right there. Right, that's like. You're talking about the same type of player, very skilled, fast.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from Nick Ehlers as a player.
And he's going to make a lot of money. He's going to make a lot of money.
He's going to make good money. He's had real trouble proving that he could be a part of a winning team when it comes playoff time. Like, I covered Winnipeg, Colorado last year, and the narrative around him was not pretty. Like, deservedly so, just based on the way he played. Nothing to do with his intentions, right? Like, they're there.
Yeah.
I don't know why Thomas Tatar wasn't a playoff player. Like he was so great in the regular season. There was so much potential in the way he played.
You're right.
And I don't want to paint Nick Ehlers with the same brush. It's just that is what it has been so far. It doesn't mean it's too late for him to show he could be something different. But there's a redundancy there anyways, right? Like Caufield is already in Montreal and Caufield has shown that he can play in the playoffs. But this management group, I don't think, is focused on getting smaller in their top six.
No, and nor they should. They should. They really need to get bigger, stronger, harder to play against, grittier, character guys. We're discussing a couple of these trade rumors.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to the game on Saturday night that the Canadiens lost in Winnipeg by a score of 4-2, which I thought was an honorable defeat, by the way, and we'll discuss it. I'm curious to see the next time they will make a deal. But not a deal in terms of, getting rid of a couple of players before the deadline. Let's kind of try and get a couple of draft picks. I can't wait for them to make a deal where they go out and they try and get a player that they believe can make a difference on this team. Because with all due respect to the management group and all the respect that I have for Gordon Hughes, and I've mentioned this now a couple of times in the past couple of weeks, the jury is still out on the acquisition of Justin Barron, Alex Newhook, and Kirby Dach. Now, there's been times where we looked at it, we said, Canadiens are going to do okay in those deals. But today, I think we have to say that they have not, they're not a home run. They're not a triple. They're not a double, and not yet.
Okay.
Not
So
yet.
I want to Justin Barron deal, second round pick came. I don't know what the second round pick became in the end, because, it's hard to remember all these things. It wasn't Hudson, was it?
You know what? It probably was.
Okay. Either way, you don't know who you're drafting when you pick up the second round pick. So let's not play it that way. Yeah. So Hudson was from, what does that say? Kulak? The Kulak deal.
Oh, the Kulak deal. That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Pretty amazing deal. Makes up for the Lehkonen one being slightly underwhelming. Although before Lehkonen was traded out of Montreal and realized his full potential in Colorado.
Yeah.
Like, we all knew he was a great two-way player, but one way he wasn't scoring goals. Certainly not at the clip that he did in Colorado once he went.
Yeah.
Like, Canadiens fans were tearing their hair out saying, you got to get rid of this guy. Well, scouts were saying, geez, I hope they get rid of this guy because he's unbelievable. So, it's a little revisionist history on the Lehkonen deal. I want to get into the Cozens Dach idea, but before I do, let's talk about Newhook, because I understand what was given up for him, but we've heard Kent Hughes talk about certain circumstances under which he's willing to overpay to bring players to Montreal. When you have an abundance of a certain level of assets that you can push through to get a player that you think can help you both now and in the future. On Newhook, Christian Dvorak isn't going to be here next year. I think we all know that. We can concede that at this point. They're not going to re-sign him. I'd be really surprised about that. I'd be more surprised if they re-sign Christian Dvorak than if they somehow sign Nikolai Ehlers. Okay?
Totally agree with you.
But I think we can also concede that Christian Dvorak, Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher, I don't know if it's the three of them bringing it out in each other or whatever it is, he's playing really well.
Yeah.
Now, like, imagine if next year Ivan Demidov is here.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Hage, I don't know if he'll be out of Michigan by then, but if he is, potentially he starts in the minors. Potentially he pushes quickly to kind of make himself a spot in Montreal. He pushes Dach to potentially get to another level. Who knows? But even if he's not a part of the equation, maybe Dach comes back, a player that looks much like the player that you thought he might be.
Yeah. Hopefully Dach pushes himself to get to the next level.
Agreed. So if that happens and Newhook ends up in that spot between Gallagher and Anderson, I think you're going to see a lot of the value that Newhook already brings become increased significantly, and maybe people will look at it and say,
That's
you know what,
chair.
They
That's
gave up,
chair.
maybe they gave up too much for a guy who's ultimately going to be their third line center. But there are certain conditions under which, as a manager, you're giving up a lot to do something like that, because you're getting in a player at a very young age, and that player will still have 2 years left on a deal that pays him a menial amount of salary, which brings us to Dach.
That's his chair, by the way. That's his chair. And I had this discussion with Pierre Maguire. I'll make you get to Dach in just a second. But with Pierre, we discussed, Jake Evans' contract is up at the end of the year. Everyone loves Jake Evans. There's no doubt about that, right? Jake Evans gives you an honest effort every night. But if Alex Newhook his chair is the third line center chair, at that point you have to say with Evans, well, okay, yes, the Evans is a fourth line centerman, but at a certain amount, because if that amount is out of your price range, well, Owen Beck will be here next year as a fourth line centerman.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's a dangerous game to play, right? And like you're bringing me into a whole other type of discussion, which I'd like to get into with you. But before we get there, I want to talk about Cozens and Dach. And I'm not really sure where that idea comes from. I don't see it going on either side. And the main reason is money. Dach for one more year is at 3.4, and like they don't need to rush on a decision. Now, if Buffalo comes to them and says, we're going to give you Dylan Cozens straight up for Kirby Dach, well, you better evaluate that. And you're getting, as you said, slightly younger, right? Is it there a year difference between them?
They're close. I
think
close.
24, 23, whatever it is. But yeah, so
here we go. Dylan Cozens turns 24 in February. I think they're the same age.
Pardon me. So
yeah,
he makes double the money. Right now, he makes double the money. Look, he had a 31 goal, 68 point season. I wrote about Buffalo today, so that's kind of fresh.
Yeah,
at 21 years old.
It's the same draft year, right?
Pretty similar narrative, right? Like you're talking about two players who have shown high potential and haven't reached it, and have taken steps back that you hope will carry them a couple forward. But I don't know. I don't see that happening. And I think Buffalo has to be beyond careful about how they proceed right now, especially I don't expect them doing anything insane while they're in the middle of a 10-game losing streak. But considering what it's looked like for them, trading guys out and watching them just blow up everywhere else, I'd be really, really careful about moving Dylan Cozens right now.
Yeah, well, listen, if they offer him to the Canadiens, I know it's double the salary. I would make that deal in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but like what? Based on what? Based on the season 2 years ago? You're saying the same stuff about Dach.
Yeah, based on the fact that if you take a look at his NHL games played, he's got more goals per game. He's got more assists per game.
What
he's
has
got
he done
more
in the last 2 years?
Game.
What has he done in the last 2 years since putting up 31 goals and 68 points?
What has Kirby Dach done in the last 2 years?
Exactly. You're saying that you were talking about the same thing.
He's a better face-off
Why
guy.
is it a better bet at double the money for two players that are the same age?
Because you've solidified your second line center role for the next 4 or 5 years with Kirby Dach. Well, with Kirby Dach, you definitely have not. Well, I mean, the big question in Montreal is whether he's a centerman or a winger.
I know, but if you're going to make a deal for twice the money, Tony,
don't
you need that like guaranteed and not just like, well, we hope that's the case.
Well,
You need that guaranteed.
yeah,
And like Buffalo thought he'd be their second line center.
I
This year.
hear you.
I hear
you.
There.
Yeah, but you know,
and it's a big part of the reason they find themselves exactly where they are right now because he hasn't.
I know.
Close to that.
You know what?
Buffalo
Buffalo traded Jack Eichel. They traded Sam Reinhart. They traded Ryan O'Reilly. If I were the Canadiens, I would make a trade with Buffalo.
Well, it's like, look, I get the thinking. I'm not totally dismissing the thinking. I'm just saying, like, we're saying the same things.
Look, he's not the second line centerman that would be the top second line centerman on my list. But I mean, those guys, like, they don't grow on trees too. A lot of teams like to keep their second line centerman. Anyway, who knows if this is even a possibility? But if it is, look, I talked about this earlier today on the radio. I need you to think about this for a second, right? Because, and I almost hate to go there, even though I did, and even though I'm bringing it up for like the 1,000th time today. And I hate to do this because, quite honestly, Kirby Dach must be so down in the dumps right now that it almost pains me to talk about it, right? Like, we know athletes that have these kind of injuries. It takes them a couple of years before they're comfortable. They play tentative. Some of them play scared. His confidence must be rock bottom. So I hate saying it, but this is what we do, unfortunately. So if you were a hockey fan and you moved somewhere where you weren't watching hockey for quite some time, and you came back to Montreal and you moved back and you started watching, and you had no idea that Kirby Dach was drafted 3rd overall in 2019. You had no idea that he was such a huge prospect going into his draft year. You had no idea that he was going to be a huge prospect for first couple of years with Chicago. You had no idea that he was acquired by the Montreal Canadiens. You had no idea he was the Canadian second line centerman. And you started watching a Canadiens game, and you realized that Suzuki, could play center, and Newhook could play center, and Evans could play center, and Dvorak could play center. Kirby Dach wouldn't be in your lineup.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of hypotheticals where you eliminate every piece of context. Look, if we ran through the same hypothetical and I talked to you, a year ago, and we watched training camp together, and we were at every practice together.
Yep.
And we watched the first 2 games of the season. You and me would both be saying this kid has the potential to be better than Nick Suzuki. And if not better, then just as good.
I never thought he'd be better than Nick Suzuki. He never produced at that level, but yes, watching him
without any context at all.
Yes, watching him in camp.
That would have been a natural conclusion.
Yeah, you know what? Good point. Without any context at all, would have been a natural conclusion. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Look,
mind you, I thought Oliver Kapanen was going to be something after a preseason game too.
I'm going to say this, and it's going to go cross current with what everybody feels about Kirby Dach now, and maybe I'll sound like a broken record because I've said it before. I believe that this player can be a lot better than what we've seen through the first 30 games of this season. I believe he has a ceiling that he can get to that would push him into that top 6 role and secure him there for a very long time. I believe if he treats his situation right now the right way, all this pain that he is going through mentally will bring him to the place he needs to get to. He has to come to some very hard realizations on his own. You said something critical before, that on his own, he has to be motivated to become that player. I hope he's, put the injury aside. We've given him the latitude with the injury. We know it takes a full year for him to get to where he's got to go with that. Okay. Yeah. But I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. There is a level of work that he should be realizing he needs to put in, that he might think he's been working really hard, or that he put himself in optimal shape before this season started. I don't buy it. I don't think he was in good enough shape before the season started, and that's his injury aside. I'm talking about giving yourself the very best shot. And I'm not sitting here saying he was in bad shape, but he had an opportunity to mitigate some of that trouble that he was going to have.
Yeah.
And he didn't do enough to help himself.
No, he didn't.
I hope he's realizing it, playing these games right now and going through what he's going through.
Yeah.
There is another level to get to. And I always come back, and I'm not comparing Kirby Dach to Nathan MacKinnon, not at all. But I always come back to Nathan MacKinnon. And his first 5 years in the league were pretty good. Okay? Or his first 4 years in the league, they were pretty good.
Yeah.
And he thought he was working hard. And then he started evaluating himself, and he started talking to a sports psychologist, and he started to put things
got a
together
mental performance coach. Yeah, correct.
Realize that there is a whole other level of investment that he needs to get to be the player that he should be. Nathan MacKinnon made that realization. There are other players with lots of talent that never get there.
Well,
they never figure it out. And this is that's why I said to you last week.
Yeah.
The next 12 months, they're the most important and determinant months of Kirby Dach's career. And I'm not giving up on him till he's gone through at least 6 of them.
What you just talked about, that's a fire that burns within Nathan MacKinnon, but that's what makes him so special. Not every player has that kind of fire. And I haven't seen that fire from Kirby Dach.
But he had to find a way to access it, Tony. He had to find a way to act. It wasn't.
I hear you.
It's not like he wasn't working hard his first 4 years.
Yeah.
It's not like Kirby Dach goes into these games and he's not working hard. It's just that there is a whole other level of commitment off the ice that you hope he's realizing. This isn't fun. This is not fun.
I see a level of nonchalantness. I see a level of nonchalantness. And by the way, and I know it was one shift, but that game in Minnesota, Vinny Danfus after the second period just picked apart Kirby Dach for a lack of engagement on one shift in particular.
I don't like what I see, man. I don't like how often he's on the wrong side of the puck. Okay, I don't like how often when I turn into a Canadiens game or I'm at the Canadiens game and a good momentum shift is followed up by him getting on the ice and the momentum going the other way. It's troublesome. It's a pattern. It's something that he's got to deal with. There's no way he's having fun.
No,
with it going this way, and hopefully that feeling really enables him to access the fire required.
Yeah,
get to the type of player he can be. Because I'll tell you, they haven't given up on him. Marty St. Louis hasn't given up on him because if he had, he'd be treating him in a way that a lot of fans are begging him to treat him.
Well, they don't want to give up on him besides everything else. Obviously, they went on, they tried to acquire him, but they don't have anyone internally to be able to do that in the next year. Like, who do they have who can step up and be their centerman for the rest of this season or next season on that second line? Within the organization, they don't have it.
Yeah, they don't have it.
They don't have it.
They know, and that's why right now, the actions you see taken with this player, as much as everybody would like them to be much more punitive in this and that, they have to be in the aim of like securing the future of the player as well.
Yeah,
you know, they have to be in the aim of bringing that player to where he needs to go to align with where this team needs to be when they get there, right? Like, and again, 6 months from now, he starts the season on the same note that we're seeing him right now. If he doesn't have improvement between now and the end of the season, and he comes to training camp next year and nothing looks different, that's the time where you start to pivot to another plan. But I'll tell you, like, I don't know how you feel. I don't know how much you've watched. Michael Hage, to me, what I'm seeing from him, what I'm hearing from people I talk to in and outside the Canadiens organization about the player.
Yeah.
You know, if Kirby can't motivate himself to the level he needs to, that kid's going to light a fire. And if he doesn't, that'll be that for Kirby in Montreal, and he'll be on to his next team. So
that kid left me with a very good impression in Vegas. He and I had a couple of chats. We were staying in the same hotel, and we had a couple of really good chats. So he's a really nice kid. All right, we talked about Dach. I mean, he's taken a couple of penalties too that have, and very unfortunately, led to a couple of goals by the other team. But I mean, a lot of their players have as well. Josh Anderson's taken some penalties too. But I love Anderson's pride level this year. Like, I really love it. Like, at one point he said, Tom Wilson, enough's enough, and I don't like the way this game is going. Boom, fights him. At one point he says to Jacob Trouba, I remember the hit that you gave Justin Barron. Now it's time to pay the price. Fights him, goes out there, competes, works his ass off. Yeah, he probably has less goals than they would have in an ideal scenario that they would like him to have, because he scored 27 in Columbus 5 years ago. But you know what? A year ago, I really gave it to Josh Anderson, and 1 year later, I say, I'm good. I'm good with the way you're trying. You're working hard. It doesn't always go in. I get it.
I don't have a game. I haven't seen a game that he's played this year where I've been like, oh man, like, what is going on? Not one game. You know,
it's been good. He's been good.
I know the fans groan when Anderson moves up with Caufield and Suzuki.
Yeah.
I know why Marty moved Newhook next to Line and Dach. If you don't know by now, everybody should know. He's been talking about it nonstop about getting that speed on that line.
Well, it was an incredibly slow and possibly out of shape line before.
I honestly think Josh Anderson could fit in really well with Line and Dach and just do a lot of the dirty work that they need on that line. And I don't think you'd lose much if you move Newhook to the line with Gallagher and Dvorak.
Yeah.
But I think, part of the other benefit of Newhook being on the line with Dach and Line, aside from his speed and his work ethic, is the fact that he can pitch in at center and on his strong side on the left side where Dach plays the right, and also his speed enables him to be the first back checker and the guy down low too, if Dach can't make it there. Because as I said, seen too much action where Dach is on the wrong side of the puck.
Let's hear from Nick Suzuki on Kirby Dach and his progression.
I think he's slowly getting back to where he was last year. I think he's playing with a lot of pace now, more so than in the beginning of the season. I think he wants the puck more. I think he's trying to hang on to it and not distribute it as fast as he was. So I think slowly but surely he's coming along, and it's a major injury that he's coming back from. You just got to give him time, and I think his mindset and positivity has been going a long way for them.
Is he coming along, Eric? Do you see?
There's flashes, right? Like there's flashes in every game. It's just like I said, there's too many instances where on the wrong side of the puck or changing momentum the wrong way, and he's also hasn't had luck. You make your own luck to a degree, but there have been some bounces that go against him that are quite unfortunate. The penalties are not excusable, and they're not. I know Marty talked about compete penalties the other day, but I didn't find Dach's penalty that started the momentum going the other way for the Jets to be a compete penalty.
Yeah,
it's a not careless, but a needless penalty in the wrong portion of the ice, which is too often the case.
Yeah,
look, it's such a tricky situation and how to deal with it, and I think, like I said, preserving the future is very important in this whole thing. I've wondered at times, would there be benefit to sitting Dach out for 3-4 games and letting him work on things off the ice and on it, and then bringing him back? And it's a careful line to kind of tiptoe, because you're dealing with a player and you're trying to build up his confidence, and you don't want to tear it down. Look, the Buffalo Sabres just did this with Jack Quinn, who's a very skilled player, right? But he had a leg injury last year that deprived him of a lot of time. He had an Achilles injury in the offseason. He just took 5 games off to work on some things, and Lindy Ruff was talking about how hard he worked to get his way back, to work on his speed. And sure enough, he comes in and scores, I think it was 2 goals against Toronto in the last game, which, they were leading 3-1 and lost 5-3 for their 10th loss in a row. But I don't think the Canadiens are there with Dach, but I wonder if it would help him to a certain degree to take a couple games off and then come back and go for it. I don't know. I don't know if they would do that. I just sometimes you got to do that with some players.
Canadiens and the Sabres tomorrow night. Owner Terry Pegula flew in today, and reportedly, I read. Frank Saravalli wrote that Pegula's message to the team was basically, we believe in you, we believe in the coach, we believe in the GM, we believe in the players. The solution is within the room. Yeah. This is pretty crazy based on
I wrote about it too.
Based on, did you? Oh, sorry, I hadn't read it yet. I haven't read it yet, but I definitely will. Guy. I definitely will when we get off the air tonight. I promise you that, because I got a radio show tomorrow and I'll definitely read it. This is pretty crazy, but the information I was given that Pegula came in, he landed, and he left 2 hours later. So he went from boom to the Bell Center, from where his plane landed to the Bell Center, spoke to the team, boom, back to the plane, gone. Couple of hours. But, he's being questioned big time in Buffalo and his commitment to the Sabres, because they see him more often at Bills games, and everyone thinks that his commitment lies with the Bills. And I think you have to show everyone that, teams lost 10 games in a row. I got to be there for the team. But anyway, I can't wait to see this game tomorrow because the Canadiens are playing against a team that has lost 10 in a row. And those games usually go like, they're usually, either the team bounces back or they continue to slump. But, I'd still rather play a team that has lost 10 in a row over a team that's won 10 in a row, obviously.
And, dude, like how many teams lose 10 in a row and then rattle off 10 wins? Or they don't, maybe they win one game and then they lose 2 more. Like,
yeah, they don't know how to win.
Maybe the Sabres will beat the Canadiens. It's entirely possible. Like having lost 10 in a row, they're still a point ahead in the standings.
Yeah.
Montreal's a game in hand, but it's
Sick
not like
podcast.
out of the question that they'll win, right? Like,
brought to you in part by Accent Insurance Solutions. All insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. It's at Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't just sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money. Whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business, visit their website, www.accentassurance.com, or call them at 514-363-3636, and go all the way with Betway. Also our proud sponsor, and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. Please play responsibly. All right, okay. Juraj Slafkovsky. He was asked, what's going on, Juraj? There's some inconsistency in terms of your play and your production. This is the answer he gave.
I figure out. I don't know. I wish it was like it was. I wish everything was clicking like it was last year, but for some reason it's not. Like, people have their own opinions or whatever, but I feel like I'm doing everything the same. It's just not going how I want, but hopefully I get there soon.
I think putting Slavkovsky back with Caufield and Suzuki gave him a little bit of a shot in the arm. I saw a better game from Slavkovsky on the weekend. Not perfect, but better than he looked with Dach and Liney.
Yeah, listen, it's something you build piece by piece. And, like, people need to remember he's 20. Like, he's 20. His first season was chopped in half by a knee injury. His second season started off slow, and he found something that was really quite impressive. I think everybody saw what the potential was and saw the justification for the first overall pick in 2022. And, with that comes a certain swell of confidence and a belief with a contract that comes in that it's going to flow just because it was already there. And I think, you look at the beginning of the season, there was some confusion, in my opinion, from the player on what he can and can't get away with on a given shift, what type of player he needs to be effective. And within that process of getting mixed up between those two things, he struggled with the consistency coming out of it. You see him play a couple games where it's like, okay, like he's getting to that direct game. He's keeping his feet moving. He's keeping his 2 hands on his stick. He's throwing the hits. He's not worried about making the big plays. And then he follows up that good stuff with, he gets a puck in motion on the breakout and is looking for a 100-foot pass across the ice because he sees an open red sweater.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's just, he's playing like a guy who's 20 years old and has 100-something games under his belt. And I think it's normal for any player, whether they're picked first or 62nd overall at his age and what he's had to deal with. The thing I like about Juraj Slafkovsky is he's got his head in the right place. Like he's got a good attitude. He has proven already that he learns on the fly and he's able to adjust and he's able to self-assess and he's able to figure things out. And right now he's in another part of that. He's in another phase of his development of having to figure something out and get past.
I got a question for you. What do you think of the question that he was answered the other day?
Sure.
What do you think of the question he was asked the other day about if you were a fan, would you pay a couple of $100 to go watch this team play?
I didn't like the question at all. And I like Herb Zurkowski a lot, but I really don't think that's a fair question to ask a player. It's not a question I would ask. Maybe some people loved it. Maybe they thought it was fair.
I mentioned earlier tonight on TV, personally, and I love Herb too. Personally, I would not have asked that question.
No, but you know what?
I said that with JC, and JC thought that the question was legit, and he actually liked the question.
I'm sure he did. Yeah. Not going to comment on that. Listen, he had a good answer. I thought, and for a kid who had to think on the fly for a question that he could have been very easily offended by, it was a good answer. I don't think it's fair.
Well, I bumped into a couple of hockey fans on Saturday night who actually. And once again, I'll say this: I would not have asked that question. I thought it was a very difficult question for a 20-year-old.
I think you could ask any player that question, and I don't think it's necessarily a fair question.
Okay. But I ran into a couple of hockey fans on Saturday who did not like the answer, and they thought that he should have said, you know what? Right now, unfortunately, we're not worth the price of admission, and we can obviously play a lot better than we have been. And look, I mean, if you say that, though, you're putting your owner in a bad spot.
You can't say that. I want to tell you something, and in fairness to Herb, too, by the way. It's a much more fair question to ask when you're one-on-one with a player rather than sitting in front of a bunch of cameras and creating a moment like that. I don't think there was any bad intention from Herb asking that question. I don't think he was looking for a viral moment. It's just, I don't know. And again, I don't like to particularly comment on other people's work and this and that. Like, we're all colleagues. Herb does very good work. It's nothing against him or anything like that. You're asking me about the question itself. It's something I wouldn't ask, and I certainly wouldn't do it in that setting where you're with a backdrop and there's 20 cameras and reporters everywhere. Like, it's just not. It's not a fair position to put a player in on a question that what's he supposed to say to that? So
a couple more things, and then I'm going to call it a night because I'm laboring tonight, by the way. I'm coming down with something, so I'm playing a little bit hurt.
I hope it's not what I have. I think I have pneumonia.
Oh, really? Well, geez, then you're more of a gamer than me. But you know what? I'm not going to criticize Kirby Dach's play coming off of ACL, MCL, and then I'm not going to do a podcast because I feel like I'm coming down with something. But yeah, I feel like I'm coming down with something, the year and all that stuff. But anyway. Lane Hudson scores his first goal. The bench is super happy. Pretty cool moment for him. Marty St. Louis says after the game that he was very encouraged with what he saw. I mean, so was I. I thought, look, they outscored Winnipeg 5-on-5. Who would have guessed that going into the game? Canadiens took some bad penalties. Winnipeg's power play was too strong for the Canadiens penalty kill, especially when you go up 5-on-3. And Connor Hellebuck made some huge saves, and the Canadiens got goalie at times, especially off of Patrick Laine. But St. Louis says he's encouraged. Talk to me about the response after the loss versus Pittsburgh, giving up the 6 consecutive goals in the third period. They lost again on Saturday, yes, but I called it an honorable loss, an honorable defeat.
Yes, it's an honorable loss, and it's a good rebound from obviously an atrocious performance in the third period of the Pittsburgh game. But the repetitive pattern, I don't think the Jets beat the Canadiens on Saturday. The Canadiens beat themselves. They took 6 fucking penalties against that team. You can't do that. Like, sorry for swearing. Like,
it's okay.
That's just
it's a podcast.
You're putting the best power play at home and clicking at 35%. 6 times they give them opportunities, and the Jets gave them opportunities too, and they didn't take advantage of them. But we're constantly talking about actions that help the other team and ultimately shooting yourself in the foot to lose a game. And that pattern, the modus operandi for the Canadiens from here to the end of the season has to be to break that pattern. Like, if that continues, we talk about developing losing habits and this and that, that'll be at the source of it. If they don't turn this around and go in the right direction that they need to go in as far as their rebuild is concerned. And there are cautionary tales here to learn from teams around them, whether it's Ottawa or Buffalo or Edmonton for 10 years before they finally figured it out. The difference, I think, between Montreal and some of those other teams is the culture that they established, that they were never going to, no matter how much management wanted to see them lose the games, intentionally throw them. You look at Buffalo and what they did to try to get McDavid at the same year that Edmonton did what they did to get him. Yeah. You don't even realize the ramifications of that until you're 10 years away from that and still suffering. That to me is the difference. Somebody asked me today, what's the prohibit the Canadiens from going down that same road? And it's to me, it's the fact that they haven't set that up as a barometer for how they're going to be. But I'll tell you this, Tony, if they continue to lose games and beat themselves in the process, that's going to do some damage. It's going to do some damage to the long-term health of this team. And it's something that I appreciated what Marty was saying after the game. I know he's got to keep his team psyche in the right place, and he's not going to throw them under the bus after what was a pretty reasonably good effort.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure he's just as annoyed that the team beat itself on Saturday. And I'm sure the players are sitting there saying to themselves, like, we had this game, we were in it, and we should have won it. And we didn't because we took 6 penalties. So
a couple of people have posted that this team needs F-bombs, so they're pretty happy that you said it, Eric. So on that note, we can call it a night tonight. And maybe 3 quick questions. Let's bring them up. Shane, if we can.
Please.
We'll get in the habit of bringing up some. Okay. Tony, Eric, who are the players on Montreal that are more likely to be dealt this season? I'll say Christian Dvorak will be dealt with certainty, and I say that Yoel Armia will be dealt with certainty. I've just given you 2. Eric?
I would stick with those 2 guys. I can't say anybody else will be with certainty. We talked about Jake Evans briefly before, and there is a possibility that he prices himself out of this market. No one back, by the way, by all accounts, by everything that is said by people who watch Laval, scouts from other teams, that the kids, his details are fantastic. They are super impressed with the player. But for me, if you're going to become a team that is winning, you're going to be looking for the type of player that Jake Evans is, because it's not that role, and I've said this to you before, is not filled by a kid who's 23 years old and starting off in the NHL. Yeah, like it's just not how it works. So, if they can manage to convince Jake Evans to take a deal that will be to his benefit and not necessarily the best one that he could possibly get, because he realizes Montreal is a good market for him to be in with good opportunity. Well, great for them. But I can't sit here and guarantee you that they'll be able to get that done. But I also can't guarantee you they'll trade him between now and the trade deadline. Because maybe they can get it done. We'll see.
I think ultimately David Savard is going to be traded as well. But I would bet on Dvorak being traded and Armia being traded, and I wouldn't bet on Savard being traded just yet. But I do believe ultimately Savard will be traded. But you know what? We'll wait and see. We'll see what happens.
Briefly on him. You and I had this discussion last week. He needs to raise his value considerably for that to make sense for them, honestly, because there is a long-term consideration to what they need to do with their young defensemen, and they can't continue to have 3 of them playing their offside. Like that's not a good thing for development. Okay.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I agree with you 1,000% on that.
If keeping David Savard enables them to do that less, that'll probably be worth it to them rather than trading him for right now what would amount to a 4th or 5th round pick. Like
I said, a 3rd round last week.
I know, but there's no way. There's no way, Tony.
Pierre Maguire thinks he can get a late 2nd.
No way. Not right now. And I'll happily disagree with both of you on that right now.
Yeah.
Right now, it's not there. There's a lot of time between now and the deadline before we get to a real assessment of what his value will be on the market. And what helps his value, honestly, the defense market is really thin. Like there is not a lot of options out there that really help. But you have to ask yourself, what team out there is looking at David Savard as anything more than a 6th defenseman for them? And what is the price to acquire that type of player? Like, and I'm talking about contenders, because teams that are just on the bubble and trying to make it are not going to look at him as a difference maker that they're going to give up all kinds of assets for. So
last question. When is it enough with Primo? What are we even doing anymore with him in the lineup? I know Fowler's coming in 1 or 2 years, but you have to have a capable backup now. I think at this point, Caden Primo will probably just play out the season.
Maybe. Or, maybe as a couple of colleagues suggested, Connor Hughes will find his way back up to Montreal, and great Caden Primo will find his way to Laval. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not sure how the Canadiens are going to play that one. I suspect he'll be in Montreal from here to the end of the season, and that might be that.
If he is, he's going to play Friday night in Detroit.
I hope for him.
And then he's going to end up playing on the Sunday, the 29th in Tampa.
I hope for him he finds a little bit of what he brought last year, because he was reliable. And right now he's not. I mean, it's just he's a great kid, but it's not happening for him right now, and I don't know what the solution is.
Eric, enjoy the hockey game tomorrow night, and you know what? I will. They play on Monday the 23rd. So I don't know when you and I will speak next, but we will. All right. Happy holidays to you and yours. We'll talk to you soon.
Drink lots of water, some hot tea, maybe.
That's right here. Right here. Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Yeah. Eric Engels, sportsnet.ca. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. Leave us a 5-star review if you can. It's our way of feeling the love. And follow us on all social media platforms, and especially, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. Marinaro for Pau Montreal, PEAU Montreal.com is the website. Pau Esthétique Médicale has 2 locations, downtown Montreal on the West Island. Dr. Manish Khanna and his team, they use the latest cosmetic technologies for laser injections, fillers, body contouring, facial treatments. Check out Pau Montreal on Instagram. Call them 514-989-7328. Once again, leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. The post-game edition of the Sick Podcast tomorrow night, the Habs post-game edition, is going to be unbelievable. Myself, Pierre Maguire, and Maxime Lapierre. Talk to you then. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.